So in the last class, I had discussed about loading of transmission line. There were three types of loading: lump loading, continuous loading, and one more type, patch loading. So what is the difference between lumped loading and continuous loading? What is the difference among lump loading, continuous loading, and patch loading? Loading of transmission line. So when we were discussing the telephone cable as a twisted wire transmission line, so we were placing lumped inductors in some interval. So what happens in the case of lump loading? So that the line can be made distortionless line. That was the objective, to make the transmission line as distortionless, or with minimum distortion, with minimum frequency and delay distortion. So we had to increase LYC is equal to RYG, and we had to increase the inductance. Inductance we had to increase. So how we were increasing the inductance? By the placement of the inductor, lumped inductor, or lumped loading coils at some intervals, at uniform intervals. So that was the lumped loading. And what we were doing in the case of So what is the case of continuous loading? So for continuous loading, we were using permalloy as the magnetic tape of high permeability, a steel tape. So in the case of continuous loading, see here all three types of loading is compared. So a type of iron or some other magnetic material. So this was wound on the cable, telephone cable, to increase the permeability, high permeability material of the surrounding medium, and thereby to increase the inductance. So attenuation versus frequency is shown in this figure for different types of loading: lumped loading, continuous loading, and when it is not loaded. So when the telephone cable or transmission line is not loaded, it is unloaded. So when it is unloaded, so how is the attenuation versus frequency curve? And for you can see here that attenuation is increasing, and then after some frequency it will be of high attenuation. For the case of lumped loading, you see attenuation is less. Attenuation is less, and after some frequency, the attenuation is high. So it is acting as a low pass filter. Low frequency signal will pass, high frequency signal will be attenuated. Low pass filter. And continuous loading. So for the continuous loading, you can see attenuation is less, and continuous loading is giving better results in terms of attenuation alpha versus frequency. So it is not as high as in the case of lumped loading, even for high frequency. Okay, so and what is patch loading? A third kind of loading we have to load the transmission line to increase the inductance. So in the case of patch loading, it is employing continuously loaded cable. So continuous loading, you know how we are doing continuous loading. So some magnetic material of high permeability, like a steel tape, it is wounded on the cable. So sections of continuously loaded cable separated by sections of unloaded cable. That is happening in the case of patch loading. So the cost will be reduced. So advantage of continuous loading will be also there, and the cost will be also little less, considerably less. Okay, so inductance loading, there are three types of loading. We have lumped loading, continuous loading, and patch loading. So inductance loading of telephone cables, we have already discussed this, and alpha beta we had calculated. Alpha was equal to R/2 root C/L, beta is equal to omega root LC. So velocity of propagation, as you can see, this is not dependent on the frequency. It is equal to 1 upon root LC. So this is a non-dispersive transmission line, because the velocity is not a function of frequency. If it is a function of frequency, it is known as dispersive transmission line. In any material, when the velocity is a function of frequency, it is known as dispersive material. When it is independent of the frequency, the velocity, then it is known as non-dispersive material. Okay, so next we have open circuited and short circuited transmission lines. So what was the input impedance? If you remember the hyperbolic transmission line equation for voltage and current. So for voltage and current, so what is the incident voltage and current at the source? Input voltage and current. So source voltage Vs is equal to, in terms of voltage at the receiving end, VR into hyperbolic function. So cos hyperbolic gamma L. Gamma is equal to root Zy cos hyperbolic gamma L plus Z0 upon Zr. Z0 is the characteristic impedance of the transmission line, and Zr is the termination impedance or the load impedance or the impedance at the receiving end of the transmission line, sin hyperbolic gamma L. And source current is equal to receiving current into cos hyperbolic gamma L plus Zr upon Z0, plus here Zr upon Z0 sin hyperbolic gamma L. So this is not difficult to remember, the expression for voltage and current, incident voltage and current. So what will be input impedance of the transmission line? What will be the input impedance? So source voltage divided by the source current. So this input impedance will be equal to, as per this equation, okay, like this. So, and this can be written VR into Z0 divided by IR into Zr, and like. So VR upon IR. So VR upon Zr. What is VR upon Zr? That is equal to IR. IR upon IR, it is cancelled. So basically VR upon IR Zr is equal to 1. VR upon IR Zr, it is equal to 1. So Z0 into this expression. So basically input impedance is given as Z0 into Zr cos hyperbolic gamma L plus Z0 sin hyperbolic gamma L divided by Z0 cos hyperbolic gamma L plus Zr into sin. So now if it is a short circuited transmission line at the receiving end, if it is a short circuited, that means Zr is equal to 0. So when Zr will be equal to 0, so what will be Zs? Z0 tan hyperbolic gamma. So Z0 tan hyperbolic gamma into S. That will be the input impedance of a short circuited transmission line. And what about the impedance of the open circuited transmission line? So for the open circuited line, Zr tends to infinity. So Zr tends to infinity means What will be ZS? ZS will be equal to Z naught cot hyperbolic gamma L. See here, Z naught cot hyperbolic gamma L. So the input impedance of an open circuited transmission line is equal to Z naught cot hyperbolic gamma L. Now what will be ZOC into ZSC? So Z naught square tan hyperbolic gamma L into cot hyperbolic gamma L, which will be equal to 1. So Z naught square. So basically Z naught is given as geometric mean of open circuited and short circuited input impedance of the transmission line. So geometric mean of the input impedance of a short circuited and open circuited transmission under root ZOC into ZSC. And if you divide ZSC upon ZOC, then what you will get? Z naught tan hyperbolic gamma L divided by Z naught cot hyperbolic gamma L. So basically tan square hyperbolic gamma L. From here what will be gamma L? So tan hyperbolic inverse under root ZSC upon ZOC. So basically from here you can calculate gamma also. So propagation constant and characteristic impedance of the transmission line you can calculate if you have open circuited and short circuited input impedance. So both secondary constant you can calculate gamma and Z naught, and so you can calculate alpha, beta and Z naught. These are the secondary constants. Okay, so next we have reflections. So if you remember, we had written voltage and current in terms of hyperbolic function and also in terms of ZR minus Z naught divided by ZR plus Z naught. So if the load impedance is equal to the characteristic impedance, then what will happen? What will be the reflection? So reflection at the receiving end will be 0. But if the load impedance is not equal to the characteristic impedance, then what will happen? There will be some reflection. And how the reflection is given? So voltage and current expression you know for the transmission line. So this voltage or current expression is written like this. Okay. And you also know this expression we had written in terms of ZR minus Z naught divided by ZR plus Z naught. So basically this is known as the reflection coefficient. This is known as the same thing you can write like this. From here you start voltage and current and you can write like this. So this ZR will come here and here ZR plus Z naught into and here it will be divided by. So like this you see here. So ZR minus Z naught divided by ZR plus Z naught. ZR is not equal to Z naught. So here we are seeing that we have two waves. One is incident wave and other is reflective. E raised to the power gamma x plus reflection coefficient into e raised to the power minus gamma x. So wave which is moving forward in the incident direction is known as the incident wave, and the wave which is moving in the opposite direction of the incident, so that is known as the reflected wave. So what is the reflection coefficient? How we define the reflection coefficient?
ZR minus Z naught by ZR plus Z naught.
So it is equal to ZR minus Z naught divided by ZR plus Z0 basically the ratio of the reflected voltage to the incident voltage. Ratio of the reflected voltage to the incident voltage, and that will be equal to ZR minus Z0 divided by ZR plus Z0. So ratio of the reflected voltage to the incident voltage, that is the definition. So reflection coefficient at the receiving end of the transmission line. So basically, if you represent it as K, so reflected voltage divided by incident voltage, and you have here the expression for voltage. So what will be VR upon VS? The ratio of the reflected voltage at the load to the incident voltage at load. So incident voltage, so what will be VR upon VS? What will be VR upon VS? Reflected voltage divided by the incident voltage. So it will be basically equal to ZR minus Z0 divided by ZR plus Z0. So this is representing incident wave and this is representing the reflected wave. And the ratio is known as the reflection coefficient. And that ratio is given here. So that is, it will be equal to reflection coefficient is ZR minus Z0 divided by ZR plus. Or you can also define as the ratio of the reflected current to the incident current, but you have to take the negative side. Because for current, what is the expression? See here, this is the expression for voltage. For the current it is here negative minus sign. It is minus sign. So you can say that, okay, reflection coefficient it can be defined as the negative of the ratio of the reflected current to that of the incident current. That way you can also define. So then it will be equal to, basically the reflection coefficient will be equal to minus of IR upon I. Okay. So now what is reflection factor and reflection loss? So you consider this transmission line. So in this transmission line, we have voltage source Vs and impedance Z1. So source impedance is Z1 and source voltage is Vs. And the termination impedance is Z2. So Z2 is not equal to Z1, that means reflection will take place. And since this is not matched, so the maximum power will not be transferred, will not be delivered to the load from the source. Because of reflection, there will be power loss. So that is known as the reflection loss. So this reflection due to impedance mismatch, this results in power loss. That is known as the reflection loss due to impedance mismatch between the load and the source. So now how to match impedance Z1 and Z2? Impedance transformer you can use. What is the job of impedance transformer? The job is to transform the impedance from one impedance to another impedance, from the source to the load impedance. It will transform the impedance, so the name is impedance transformer. So the impedance is a complex quantity, So both the amplitude and phase should be transferred from Z1 to Z2. So ideal transformer and a phase shifting network, it is saying we can use to match Z1 and Z2. Okay, so transformer when we are taking, so in the primary and secondary, so if the current is of the transformer, if the current is I1 and I2, so what is the current ratio? For the primary and secondary coil of the transformer, what is the current ratio? I1 upon I2 or I2 upon I1. So it can be given as, so basically I2 upon I1 will be equal to root Z1 upon Z2. So Z1 upon Z2 for the transformer is equal to I2 upon I1 whole square. And for shifting the phase, or you can say for matching the phase between Z1 and Z2, we are using a phase shifting network. phase shifter, which can shift the phase from the phase of Z1 to the phase of Z2. Okay. So basically, they have calculated the reflection loss. Here we are discussing low frequency transmission line. Radio frequency line we will discuss later. So what is the reflection loss? I2 upon I1 is equal to root Z1 upon Z2. What is the reflection loss? The reflection loss they have calculated as ln of Z1 upon Z2, Z1 plus Z2 upon 2 root Z1 by Z2. How they have got this? How it is achieved? So reflection factor, this is the ratio of current which is flowing in the load, in the termination impedance, to that of the current which is flowing under the matched condition. So the current flowing under the unmatched condition divided by the current flowing under the matched condition. That is the reflection factor. So I2 upon I2 dash. So under the unmatched condition, what will be the current I2? Vs upon Z1 plus Z2. And under the matched condition, what will be the current? Under the unmatched condition, the current I2 is Vs upon Z1 plus Z2. And under the matched condition, because I2 upon I1 is equal to root Z1 upon Z2. Root Z1 upon Z2. So if it is matched, so what will be current? Current will be I1 is equal to Vs upon 2Z1. I1 will be equal to Vs upon 2Z1. So then what will be I2 dash? From this formula it will be equal to root Z1 by Z2 into I1. Root Z1 by Z2 into I1. So basically put here I1 Vs upon 2Z1 and do this. So basically root Z1 here. So V upon 2 root Z1 Z2 will be I2 dash. V upon 2 root Z1 Z2. So that reflection factor is the ratio of the current in the unmatched condition to the matched condition. Ratio of the load current I2 upon I2 dash. That is the reflection factor. So that will be basically equal to, in the unmatched case, Vs upon Z1 plus Z2, and in the matched case, mode of Vs, and we are doing matching by the use of transformer and phase shifter. So divide by 2 root Z1 Z2. So the amplitude of the current ratio, which is the reflection factor, is equal to K is equal to 2 root Z1 Z2 divided by Z1 plus Z2. That is known as the reflection factor. And how the reflection loss is defined? Okay, reflection factor is calculated like this. How the reflection loss is calculated? Reciprocal of the reflection factor in decibel. So reciprocal, this is defined as the reciprocal of the reflection factor in Nepers or decibel. So ln 1 upon K in decibel. So ln 1 upon K. So ln Z1 1 upon K. So Z1 plus Z2 divided by 2 root Z1 Z2. So in terms of decibel, 20 log. So what is the relationship between decibel and Neper? 1 Neper is equal to how many decibel? Okay, so next we have 8.686, you can check it. So next we have a reflection coefficient. We have already discussed this reflection coefficient. So input and transfer impedance. Input and transfer impedance. Input impedance we have already done. So what was the input impedance? Here it is written. Z naught ZR cos hyperbolic gamma L plus Z naught sin hyperbolic gamma L divided by Z naught into cos hyperbolic gamma L plus ZR sin hyperbolic gamma. So here it is written in terms of exponential, the input impedance Z naught into e to the power gamma L plus K. K, you know what is K? K is equal to ZR minus Z naught divided by ZR plus Z naught. This is reflection coefficient. K is the reflection coefficient. Okay. So basically ES, the sending end voltage ES, this also you know, this is equal to. Okay. So what will be the transfer impedance? What is the, how we define the transfer impedance? The ratio of the source voltage, incident voltage, ES. The ratio of the incident voltage or source end voltage, ES, to that of the current at the receiving end. To that of the current at the receiving end. ES upon IR. ES upon IR. So from this formula you can see ES upon IR. So ER upon ZR is equal to IR. So IR upon 2. So basically ES upon IR will be equal to ZR plus Z naught divided by 2 into e to the power gamma L plus K into e to the power minus gamma L. This is the transfer impedance. This is the transfer impedance. So ZR plus Z naught divided by 2, because transfer impedance is the ratio of the source end voltage to that of the receiving end current. Source end voltage to that of the receiving end current. So that will be from this equation, that will be equal to ER upon ZR is equal to IR. So basically ES upon IR, so it will be equal to ZR plus Z naught divided by 2 into this factor. So ZR plus Z naught divided by 2 into e to the power gamma L plus K into e to the power minus gamma L, where K is equal to ZR minus Z naught divided by ZR plus Z naught. So put K, value of K. So you will get ZT is equal to ZR into e to the power gamma L plus e to the power minus gamma L y2, which is equal to cos hyperbolic gamma L, and similarly plus Z naught into sin hyperbolic H gamma L. So sin hyperbolic gamma L. So basically the transfer impedance ZT is equal to ZR into cos hyperbolic gamma L plus Z naught into sin hyperbolic gamma L. So this is the transfer impedance. So we have seen the characteristic impedance and the input impedance and transfer. Reflection factor and reflection loss also we have done. So next we have phase and group velocity. So phase and group velocity. Okay. So what you are seeing in this figure for phase and group velocity? Measurement of wave velocity, phase and group velocity. Okay. So basically this is the incident direction. In the medium, the wave is incident with velocity v. The wave is incident with velocity v. And the incident direction is θ1. So θ1 is the angle of the incident wave which it is making from the with the normal direction. With the normal direction. This is the bounding surface. This is the bounding surface. So basically you can say that the incident velocity v, the actual velocity v, so it has two components. One is in the parallel of the bounding surface, I will indicate here. So this velocity v is actually having two components. So what happened? So one will be parallel to the bounding surface. This is Vp, and one will be to the normal to this bounding surface. This is Vn. So Vn and Vp, parallel and perpendicular. So measurement of wave velocity, we have to measure. This is known as the phase velocity. Phase velocity, we have to understand what is phase velocity. So here we are seeing 3 points A, B, C, and the same point is projected at the bounding surface. So at the boundary surface, the point corresponding to ABC is A dash, B dash, C dash. So basically here at this point, if you are sitting here, you will measure the velocity parallel to the bounding surface, Vp velocity. This is normal, Vp is parallel. So now what will be, if it is representing one cycle of the wave, so what will be the distance from A to B? This distance, this will be basically lambda, or this will be basically lambda, one wavelength. One wavelength. The distance between two crests or two troughs and two crests, that is known as lambda. So this is here lambda. And how we define the time cycle? One cycle, Tc is equal to, how we define, lambda upon velocity v of the wave. So v is equal to lambda upon Tc. Okay. So and this angle is theta 1. This angle is theta 1. So this velocity in this direction, actual direction, that is known as v. So basically, what will be Vp? That is my point. What will be Vp in terms of v? In terms of v, can you do little bit trigonometry? What will be this angle? If I draw a line here like this, what will be this angle? Can you tell me? If this angle is theta 1, if the wave is incident at theta 1 direction on this bounding surface, and theta 1 is indicated here, what will be this angle? Yes.
90 minus theta 1.
90 minus theta 1.
So you are saying that this angle will be 90 minus theta 1. Or it will be theta 1, my dear.
Theta 1.
Yes, good. It will be theta 1. So sine theta 1 is equal to basically sine theta 1 perpendicular upon hypotenuse. So basically it will be equal to AB. It will be equal to AB upon hypotenuse is basically this VP. So VP. So VP will be basically equal to V upon sine theta, or you can say how they are related, 1 upon sine theta 1. This will be basically hypotenuse. Okay. So basically the idea is the phase velocity and the actual velocity, they are related. The actual velocity of this incident wave and the phase velocity which the observer is measuring, observer is sitting here. So this I have indicated as the phase velocity. So velocity parallel to the bounding surface. So the velocity which the observer is measuring and the actual velocity is related as with 1 upon sine theta 1. 1 upon sine theta 1, cosec theta 1. So Vp is equal to V upon sin theta 1. Here it is written. So V upon sin theta 1, V into 1 upon sin theta 1. Now my question is, if theta 1 is equal to 0, then what will happen? If theta 1 is 0, first you imagine, if theta 1 will be 0, what that means? If this angle is 0, what that means? That means the actual velocity is normal to this bounding surface. The actual velocity is normal to this bounding surface. So in that case, what will be the phase velocity if theta 1 is equal to 0?
Infinite.
It will be infinite. So the idea is, if the actual velocity is normal to the bounding surface, the parallel velocity will be infinite. But the problem is that, you know, that velocity for any type of motion cannot be infinite. From the physics, you know that velocity for any kind of motion, it cannot be greater than velocity of light. Velocity of light is the limiting velocity for any kind of motion. So can you explain this dilemma? Who will explain? Why we are getting like this type of result for phase velocity?
Sir, we can take theta nearly equal to 0 means sin theta 1 nearly equal to theta 1.
And theta 1, if it is exactly 0, it is very less.
Yes, sir.
Your point is also correct. You are saying theta 1 is less. In that case also, if theta 1 is very, very less, if you this approximate sin theta 1 as theta 1, again it will be V upon theta 1. Theta 1 is very less, so it will be very high. Much higher than V. Much higher than V. And for radio wave, you know the propagation is the velocity of the electromagnetic wave in the free space, that is equal to velocity of light, that you know.
Yes, sir.
So, but the velocity for any motion cannot be greater than velocity of light. So, as for any physical motion. So, basically, how to solve this dilemma? Why we are getting this type of result? Basically,
Use some-
you define, yes. Basically, the
Use
thing
some-
is, Vt is not the actual velocity. Why you are confused? Actual velocity is V1. It is not the actual velocity. Okay. Basically, what you did, this actual velocity you broken into two components. One is in the direction parallel to the bounding surface. Other is normal to the bounding surface. So Vc is not the actual velocity. Nah? So what is the problem? Some velocity you define, which is not the actual velocity.
0.
So this is known as the phase velocity. This velocity, which is not of course the actual velocity, this is known as the phase velocity, which is parallel to the velocity which you are measuring while sitting at this bounding surface as the observer. That is the phase velocity, and it is defined as Vp, phase velocity is equal to V upon sin theta 1, and where theta 1 is the angle which the actual velocity is making with this normal direction, incident normal direction at this bounding medium. Okay, this is here material. This is bounding surface, and V is the actual velocity in the material. Okay, and phase velocity is not the actual velocity. This is what velocity observer is making while sitting at the bounding surface. So do not be confused. This is not the actual velocity. Now the question is, when we are transmitting some intelligence, so we need some band of frequency, some group of frequency, modulated signal in amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, if you remember. So we are using some band of frequency to transmit intelligence, group of frequency. In the frequency modulation or in the amplitude modulation, we have this DSB and SSB, single sideband and double sideband. So some group of frequency we are, or even vestigial sideband, some band of frequency we are using. So omega plus delta omega, omega minus delta omega. So if you take two frequency, omega 1 is equal to omega plus delta omega, omega 2 is equal to omega minus delta omega. What will be basically omega 1 minus omega 2? 2 into delta omega. Or in terms of 2 delta x, so you can say 2 delta omega y 2 pi in terms of delta x, because you know how they are related, omega and f. Okay, so 2 delta f essentially. So basically the velocity with which the intelligence or the signal or the message or the information is transmitting, that is known as the group velocity. Here group transmitting a band of frequency we are transmitting, not a single waveform like in this case that we are discussing. Here we had considered one single velocity, one single frequency f, omega, which is having this frequency v. But for the transmission of intelligence or message signal, we need a group of frequency, band of frequency. So the question is, what will be the group velocity? Group velocity means the velocity with which the intelligence or the message or the energy is transmitted. How to calculate? What is your suggestion? How we can calculate actual group velocity for the band of frequencies? How the band is traveling with what frequency? The complete intelligence is traveling with what frequency? That is group frequency, group velocity. With what velocity? Group velocity. How we can calculate the group velocity? You consider two frequencies, f1 and f2, omega 1 and omega 2. And here I have written. So then how to calculate the group velocity with which the band of frequencies are traveling, transmitting?
Average, sir. Average.
So one suggestion is that, okay, we can take average.
Or limit from omega
Yes,
1 to omega 2.
limit we will take.
Limit. Yes, sir.
So now the question is dispersive and non-dispersive medium. I told you a material in which the velocity is a function of omega is dispersive when the velocity is dependent on the frequency, and a material in which the velocity is independent of the frequency is known as the non-dispersive material. So now we have to calculate the group velocity. So here we are assuming a band of two frequencies separated by 2 into delta omega, omega plus delta omega, omega minus delta omega. So separated by 2, differing by 2 delta omega. And delta omega is the change in frequency which is used to transmit some intelligence, some message. So how to write then this voltage? So voltage will be equal to E into cos, because we have two band of frequency, two frequencies. So omega t minus beta s, you know this, that thing. So basically omega minus delta omega, because omega 1 is equal to omega minus delta omega. So omega 1 into t minus beta 1 into s. So beta 1 will be beta minus delta beta into s. Similarly, plus cos omega 2 t. So minus beta 2 s. Cos omega 1 t minus beta 1 s plus cos omega 2 t minus beta 2 s. Omega 1, omega 2, beta 1, beta 2 corresponding to that. So that we have omega minus delta omega here omega plus delta omega. So medium is dispersive here. So dispersive medium is beta is a function of frequency also. So beta is also a function of frequency. Beta is also not constant. So here we have taken beta minus delta beta, and here beta plus delta beta. This is for frequency omega 1, this is for frequency omega 2. Here medium is dispersive, so we have written like this. In general, medium is dispersive. Okay. So basically, if you do some little bit arrangement, then what you will get? Cos omega t minus beta s minus delta omega t, and if you take minus common, so it will be like this, minus minus plus. Okay. And here for this case, omega t minus beta s plus delta omega t minus delta beta s. Now some trigonometry you can do here. So cos a minus b, what is cos a minus b? Cos a minus b is equal to 2 cos a plus b by 2 into, sorry. What is cos a minus b? 2 sin a plus b by 2 into sin a minus b by 2. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So similarly here cos a plus b. Cos a plus b is equal to cos a plus b. What will be cos a plus b? 2 cos a plus b by 2 into cos a minus b by 2. So if you do this trigonometry, so from here this voltage will be equal to 2e cos delta omega t minus delta beta s into cos omega t minus beta s. So some arrangement if you do again, 2e cos delta omega, take it as common. Delta omega t minus delta beta upon delta omega s. Here also cos omega take common, t minus beta upon omega into s. So actual velocity is equal to omega upon beta. Okay. So cos omega t minus s upon v. Okay. T minus s upon v. Why? Because v is equal to omega upon beta. Actual velocity v is equal to omega upon beta. So s upon v. T minus s upon v. And here what will happen? T minus s upon something vg. What is vg? Delta omega upon delta beta. That is known as the group velocity. And see how it is done actually. How it is calculated for two group of frequencies. Okay. So T minus s upon vg. So here this omega upon 2 pi, or you can say frequency f, is modulated. So at rate delta f, which is equal to delta omega upon 2 pi. So this is the velocity of the high frequency component, omega upon beta, carrier frequency, ordinary velocity of the traveling wave, and the low frequency component will travel with this velocity, delta omega upon delta beta, here, from here. So that is the low frequency component, delta omega. For delta omega, this is the velocity of the intelligence, or the message is transmitting, delta omega upon delta beta. You know, message signal or baseband signal, you know, low frequency component. So Vg is equal to delta omega upon delta beta. Okay. So and in the, when you take the limit, in the limiting case, when you take the limit, so basically you can write this delta omega upon delta beta when omega, this delta omega tends to 0, delta omega tends to 0. So you can write like this in the limit 1 upon d beta upon d omega, where omega, delta omega tends to 0. So omega tends to 0, it will be 1 upon d beta upon d omega. So you will ask why this type we are writing. We are writing in this way because the medium is dispersive, beta is a function of frequency. So we have written for the dispersive medium, where the phase constant beta is a function of frequency, like this. Okay. 1 upon d beta by d omega. So for the freely propagating, this is known as the group velocity, or the velocity with which the message or intelligence is transmitting. Okay. For the freely propagating wave, what is the beta? Beta is equal to omega root mu epsilon. Omega root mu epsilon for the free space wave. So what will be then d beta by d omega? This d beta by d omega, that will be equal to 1 upon root epsilon d beta by d omega will be equal to root mu epsilon. Root mu epsilon. So yes. So what will be group velocity then? 1 upon root mu epsilon. So for free space wave, group velocity is equal to 1 upon root mu epsilon. Okay. So that basically in the, that will be equal to, in the free space, this is equal to velocity of light. Okay. And what about the phase velocity? What about the phase velocity? When theta 1 is equal to 90 degree, what will be phase velocity? When theta 1 is equal to 90 degree, means the actual velocity is parallel to this bounding surface. The actual velocity, there is no normal component. In that case, when theta 1 will, this angle will be 90 degree, in that case, what will be the phase velocity? It will be equal to v upon sine 90 degree. So v into 1 upon sine 90, it will be equal to v. It will be equal to v. So phase velocity will be also equal to, here, see here, vp is equal to v. Theta is 90 degree. So basically the idea is vp, phase velocity and group velocity will be equal to the velocity of light for the free space medium. Okay. And what is the, okay, so what will be Vg into Vp? So Vg into Vp will be equal to C square. So Vg into Vp, I will write here. So Vp into phase velocity into group velocity, the product of phase velocity into group velocity will be always equal to C square. So basically, group velocity is given as A square upon Vp. So when the phase velocity upon Vp, when the phase velocity will be very high, the group velocity will be low. When it will be infinity, it will be 0. The product will be equal to C. Okay, so this concept of phase velocity and group velocity, we have a little bit we have discussed. And little more we will discuss in the, when we will consider this microwave transmission line, radio frequency transmission. This was just the introduction of group velocity and phase. Okay, so today class is over. If you have some question, you can ask. Recording I will stop. This is recorded. I will share for the student who has not attended. No issue. Yes, you can ask this question.
Kindly once derive again relation between Vp and V, sir. Once again.
No, this we had not derived. Basically, from here, for free space medium, for free space, basically group velocity is delta omega upon delta beta, so it is d omega upon d beta, and this we have derived actually, group velocity. But in the free space, what will be the phase velocity and group velocity? So from this formula d beta by d omega, so which is equal to 1 upon Vg, Vg is equal to d omega by d beta. So basically d omega by d beta, so it is coming equal to 1 upon root mu epsilon, because for the free space beta is equal to omega root mu epsilon. And what will be the phase velocity in this case? So for a freely traveling wave, the phase velocity is equal to Vp is equal to V. Vp is equal to V, and Vg is equal to also 1 upon root mu epsilon, which is equal to V. So basically Vp is equal to, Vg is equal to velocity of light V for the, in the free space. In free space, freely traveling wave. So the product will be equal to C square. Vp into Vg will be equal to C square, or you can say V square.
Sir?
So this I generalize that for any theta, Vp for any theta 1, Vp into Vg will be equal to V square or Cs. But I have not proved, I generalized it. So more I will discuss in transmission line for radio frequency. Yes.
Not this relation, sir. I was asking about phase velocity Vp and V, sir. Vp is equal to V by sin theta.
Okay, okay,
Relation
okay.
once kindly
Okay.
please explain again.
Vp is equal to V upon sin theta 1. So you want to understand this one basically. So Vp is equal to how we derived V upon sin theta 1. Good. See here, this angle is theta 1. So can you tell what will be this angle from trigonometry? From geometry, what will be this theta 1, this angle? What will be this angle? This will be theta 1. Okay, good. So and Vp velocity is in the direction parallel to the bounding surface. So then what will be the here sin theta 1? Can you tell what will be sin theta 1? Okay, you tell what will be cosec theta 1? What will be cosec theta 1?
Vp by
Hypotenuse upon perpendicular.
yes, B
Yes,
by
good, good, good.
AB.
So what
B
will
by
be
A.
okay? So then what will be Vp in terms of V actual velocity? Here V. Here we are considering single wave. Okay, so do not be confused. Okay, so what will be Vp in terms of sin theta 1 and V? So sin theta 1 will be equal to V upon Vp. Cosec theta 1 will be equal to Vp upon V. Cosec theta 1 will be hypotenuse upon perpendicular, and hypotenuse is here, it is Vp, perpendicular is V. It is very easy. So hypotenuse is Vp, perpendicular is V, cosec theta 1. So basically, Vp will be V upon sin theta 1 or V into cosec theta 1. So did you get this or not?
Yes, sir.
It is not difficult, but then you have to understand that, okay, we are measuring Vp along this direction, parallel direction. So for this triangle, the sin theta 1 will be perpendicular upon hypotenuse. So perpendicular, this is the direction of actual velocity, V. Hypotenuse, Vp. Like that we are doing. Okay, good. Any other question? So now one more thing. See here. In your syllabus, phase and group velocity, input impedance already done, loading of transmission line, lump loading, continuous loading, patch loading, 3 types of loading of transmission line we have discussed. Phase group velocity, distortionless transmission line, delay distortion, frequency distortion, phase distortion, this is discussed. Primary constant RL, C and G, secondary constant alpha, beta, and Z0 or gamma and Z0. So all these things I have done. So, and next we will discuss the radio frequency lines. Okay, radio frequency lines. Okay guys, so now I will stop it.